Hello everyone, this is Jim Nix from NomadicPursuits.com, and in this video we're going to talk about subjects in sunlight. In other words, how do you handle an HDR photo taken in broad daylight? Now, the main tip that I take advantage of when shooting HDR brackets in broad daylight is to expose to the left. In other words, capture darker frames than you normally would. If you often shoot centered brackets with a -2, a 0, and a +2 exposure setting, try scooting those to the left and capturing more negative values. You can see here, I captured a -4, a -3, and a -2 of this scene, and that's what I'm using. And the reason why is because in broad daylight, a positive exposure, +1, +2, +3, whatever it may be, it's going to be really bright. And to my eye, it becomes almost unusable. So I rarely shoot that high of an exposure. I'd rather have a little bit darker image and then bring back the light in post. And that's what we're going to do now. So let me get started here. I'm going to first cool it off a little bit to bring back some of the blue that was in the sky. It was a beautiful blue afternoon in the park here, and so I'm going to bring that sort of to life. I'm going to add a little bit of HDR Enhance. And then, as you can see with the contrast especially, we've got a fairly dark image, which is kind of surprising and frankly doesn't look that real because you can tell that it was middle of the day with the color of the sky being what it is. So that's where Smart Tone comes in. I'm going to drag that up to about 50, and that really allows me to manage the light well. And now you don't have to go quite that high. You can go dark if you wanted, but it was a bright day. I'm not trying to obscure that fact or make it look like it was some other time of day. I'm just trying to bring the photo to life and make it realistic. And so the next thing I would do after my basic adjustments is maybe give it a little bit of vibrance. I don't think I'm going to mess with saturation. There's pretty good color. I just want to amp up a little bit of the intensity, and that vibrance is really good at that. And then I would probably, for this photo in particular at least, go into the HSL or Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. And I think I'd take the saturation of the green down a little bit. It's a little too much green, and if you haven't done this before, you can also adjust the yellow, and it'll often impact the green. And I'm going to go also take the luminance of the green down a little bit, and I think that gives me a little bit more contrast. I'm not trying to hide the fact, and I'm not with these edits hiding the fact that this was shot in midday. But I think the photo looks pretty nice and balanced. I think I actually would come up here and add a little bit more Smart Tone now, just a tiny bit, something like that. And let me show you a before and after. There's a before, that's one of the single exposures from the bracket set, and that's the middle exposure. And now the after, you can see much crisper reflections, which is one of the great things about HDR. And I think the light's been balanced really nicely. It looks a lot brighter and a lot more lively than it did as a single exposure. And that's the edits I would make. For me, the key tip is really the expose to the left that I talked about, where you take more negative exposures so that you capture a little bit darker image. I find that you're going to be able to recover detail from the shadows better than you are from a really highly or overexposed photo with like a +2 or +3 value. So that's a tip, and I hope that it helps, and I hope this video helps as well. And we appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.